The blizzard came without mercy, swallowing the road in white fury as if the mountains themselves had decided to erase every sin committed upon them. Snow whipped sideways, stinging skin like knives, piling high around the abandoned stagecoach that stood crooked and still. Kneeling in the snow was the girl, barefoot, shaking, her thin dress torn at the sleeves, fingers red and numb as they clawed uselessly at the frozen ground. Her name no longer mattered to those who had cast her out. To them she was only a burden, a mistake best left behind before it slowed them down. Moments earlier, laughter had echoed from the carriage, sharp and cruel, as a woman leaned out and pointed at her like she was something broken and amusing. "She won't last an hour," the woman had sneered, slamming the door shut as the driver cracked his whip. The wheels turned. Snow sprayed. And just like that, the girl was alone. She pressed her hands against her chest, struggling to breathe as tears froze on her lashes. Every instinct screamed to run after them, but her legs had already given up. The cold crept inside her bones, whispering that sleep would be easier than survival. She thought of home, of warmth, of a mother long gone, of promises that had led her here and betrayed her. The wind howled louder, drowning out her sobs, and for a moment she truly believed this was how she would disappear. No grave, no goodbye, just another forgotten soul buried under snow. But then she heard footsteps, heavy, steady, not rushing, not afraid. Through the curtain of white emerged a figure on horseback, tall and broad, coat dusted with snow, hat pulled low against the storm. The cowboy reined in sharply when he saw her, eyes narrowing not in disgust or amusement, but in shock. He dismounted immediately, boots crunching through the ice as he approached. "Good God," he muttered, kneeling beside her. She flinched, expecting another insult, another shove. Instead, he wrapped his coat around her shoulders without hesitation. His hands were rough, calloused, but gentle. "You're freezing," he said firmly, his voice low but unyielding. She tried to speak, but only a broken sound came out. He followed her gaze to the fading tracks of the stagecoach disappearing into the storm, and something dark passed over his face. Anger. Controlled, dangerous anger. He stood scanning the white wasteland, then looked back down at her and said the words that would change her fate forever. "You'll come with me now." Not a question. A promise. He lifted her into his arms as if she weighed nothing, shielding her from the wind with his own body. As he mounted the horse and turned away from the road of abandonment, the storm raged harder, as if furious that it had failed to claim her. The ride through the blizzard felt endless, the world reduced to the sound of wind and the slow, powerful rhythm of the horse beneath them. The girl drifted in and out of consciousness, pressed against the cowboy's chest, hearing his heartbeat like a drum that refused to stop. He spoke to her the entire way, even when she couldn't respond, telling her she was safe, telling her to hold on, telling her that he would not let her go. When they finally reached his cabin, half buried in snow but standing firm against the storm, he kicked the door open and carried her inside, laying her near the fire with a tenderness that felt unreal. He worked quickly, wrapping her in blankets, warming her hands, forcing hot broth past her trembling lips. She cried then, not from pain but from disbelief. No one had ever fought the cold for her before. No one had ever chosen her when leaving would have been easier. As the fire crackled and the storm screamed outside, she learned his name and he learned her story. How she had been promised work, protection, a future, only to be treated like cargo and discarded when the road grew dangerous. He listened without interrupting, jaw tight, eyes fixed on the flames. "People like that don't deserve the road they travel," he said quietly. The days that followed were slow and fragile. The storm trapped them together, and with each sunrise she grew stronger, while something softer grew between them. Trust. He taught her how to hold a cup without shaking, how to laugh again without fear. And when the snow finally melted and the world returned, she realized something terrifying and beautiful at once. She didn't want to leave. The road that had nearly killed her no longer called her name. She had found something rarer than safety. She had found someone who stayed. And the cowboy, watching her stand in the sunlight for the first time, knew the truth he would never say aloud, that rescuing her had also saved him, because some storms don't come to destroy you. Some come to strip everything away until only what matters remains. Spring did not arrive gently in the mountains. It crept in like a wary animal, testing the ground before daring to stay. Snow still clung to the shadows, and the air carried a bite that reminded everyone winter had not finished telling its story. She learned this as she stood outside the cabin one quiet morning, sunlight warming her face while her breath still fogged the air. The land looked different now, not endless, and cruel as it had the day she was abandoned, but vast and alive, filled with the promise of work and belonging. The cowboy watched her from the doorway, leaning against the frame, arms crossed, saying nothing. He had grown used to watching over her, though he pretended it was only habit. She had grown used to the way he stayed close without crowding her, as if giving her space while still guarding the edges of it. They had fallen into a rhythm neither had named. She cooked, learned the land, helped with the horses, and laughed more easily now, though sometimes her eyes would drift toward the road that cut through the valley, the one that had nearly claimed her life. And that road, patient and cruel, had not forgotten her. The first sign came with the sound of wheels in the distance. She froze, heart pounding, hands trembling as memories surged back. Snow, laughter, the slam of a door. The cowboy noticed immediately. "Inside," he said calmly, though his jaw tightened. But she shook her head. She had run once. She had knelt and begged and been left to die. This time she would stand. The stagecoach rolled into view like a ghost returned from the dead, its paint scratched, its wheels worn. It stopped near the cabin, and from it stepped familiar faces, hard eyes, fine coats, and the woman whose laughter still haunted her dreams. Recognition flashed across them all at once, surprise, discomfort, and then something like fear, when they saw where she stood beside the cowboy. Not alone, not broken, but alive. The woman scoffed first, masking her unease with cruelty. "Well, I'll be damned," she said. "Looks like the snow didn't take you after all." The girl felt her throat tighten, but she did not look away. "It tried," she replied, voice steady. "You helped." The cowboy stepped forward then, boots firm on the ground, presence undeniable. "This road doesn't belong to you anymore," he said quietly. "You'll turn around and leave." The driver laughed nervously, but the sound died when the cowboy's hand rested near his holster. Not threatening, just ready. The woman's smile cracked. She took a step back, eyes darting, calculating. "We were desperate," she said, suddenly defensive. "Hard winter. Hard choices." The girl felt something settle inside her, heavy and final. "You chose to let me die," she said, "and I chose to live." Silence followed, thick and unforgiving. The stagecoach did not linger long after that. Wheels turned. Snow crunched. And once again the road carried them away. But this time, she was not the one left behind. When the sound faded, she exhaled a breath she had been holding since the day of the blizzard. Her legs weakened, and before she could falter, the cowboy caught her elbow, steadying her without a word. They stood there together, watching the empty road, until she finally laughed, a quiet, incredulous sound. "I thought they'd come back," she admitted. "Just didn't know when." He nodded. "Storms have a way of circling back," he said, "but they don't always win." That night, the fire burned low and warm, and they spoke of futures instead of survival. She confessed her fear of the road, how it still called to her in nightmares. He confessed his fear of staying rooted, of letting anyone matter enough to lose. The truth sat between them, fragile and honest. Days passed, then weeks. The land bloomed, and so did she. Strength returned to her limbs, confidence to her voice. She learned to ride beside him, learned the names of the peaks, the moods of the sky. And one evening,